I never thought a punk kid with a smartphone would end up saving my reputation, but life's funny that way. The whole thing started on what should have been just another Tuesday morning at Jefferson Elementary, where I'd been working as a part-time security guard for about 8 months. Not exactly where I pictured myself at 52, but after 24 years as a Navy SEAL and a medical retirement that came with more paperwork than pride, sometimes you take what you can get. The pay was garbage, $12 an hour, to basically be a glorified hall monitor, but I needed something to get me out of my apartment. The VA shrink said routine would help with what she called my adjustment issues. What she really meant was that sitting alone all day thinking about Kandahar and the IED that took my hearing in my left ear and put enough shrapnel in my right leg to set off airport metal detectors wasn't doing me any favors. So there I was, wearing a cheap polyester uniform that barely fit over my shoulders, watching 8-year-olds line up for the cafeteria and trying not to think about how far I'd fallen. The other staff treated me like I was some kind of charity case. Principal Morrison, a soft-bodied man in his 40s who probably never had a hard day in his life, made it clear from day one that I was there because the district needed warm bodies, not because they wanted me. "Just keep the doors locked and don't scare the children," he'd said during my interview, looking at me like I might snap at any moment. The teachers whispered when I walked by, probably wondering what kind of crazy the school board had hired this time. Most days I kept to myself. I'd patrol the perimeter, check the locks, make sure nobody who shouldn't be there was hanging around the playground. The kids weren't afraid of me, which was something. They'd wave when they saw me through the windows, and a few of the braver ones would ask if I was a real soldier. I'd tell them I was in the Navy, and they'd look confused because I wasn't on a boat. Simple times, you know. But this particular Tuesday started going sideways right around 10:30 in the morning. I was doing my usual sweep of the parking lot when I noticed this kid, maybe 19 or 20, with bleached hair and enough rings in his face to stock a jewelry store. He was leaning against a beat-up Honda Civic, pointing his phone at me and snickering with 2 other kids who looked like they'd never worked a day in their lives. "Dude, this is perfect," I heard him say as I walked past. "Look at this old psycho they got guarding the school. This is going to be hilarious." I should have kept walking. In the teams, we had a saying, "Stay in your lane." But something about the way he said psycho and the way his friends laughed made my jaw clench. Still, I had a job to do, and getting into it with some influencer wannabe wasn't part of it. The kid followed me, keeping his phone trained on my back. "Excuse me, sir," he called out in this fake polite voice that made my skin crawl. "Could I ask you a few questions for my TikTok? It's about what it's like to be—" He paused, probably thinking he was being clever. "What it's like to work security when you're, kind of old for this job." I stopped and turned around. Up close, he was even younger than I'd thought, with the kind of soft features that screamed suburban privilege. His phone had one of those ring lights attached to it, and he was holding it like he was some kind of professional broadcaster. The 2 friends flanked him, also recording. "Not interested," I said, and started to walk away. "Oh, come on, man," he persisted, falling into step beside me. "I'm Brandon Lifestyle. I've got like 2 million followers. This could be good for you, like exposure and stuff. What's your story? How'd you end up working at an elementary school? Did you, not make it in the military or something?" The way he said "not make it" hit me right in the chest. My hands started to shake a little, the way they did when I got angry, and I had to consciously unclench my fists. The kid was still talking, getting bolder because he thought I was some broken-down old man who couldn't do anything about his disrespect. "I bet you've got some crazy stories, right? Like Did you ever actually see combat, or were you just like a cook or something? My dad says most military guys never actually fight. They just pretend they did to get sympathy. That stopped me cold. I turned to face him, and for just a second, I let him see what 24 years of violence had done to my eyes. He actually took a step back, but then his friends started laughing, and his confidence came back. "Whoa, easy there, Grandpa," he said, grinning at his phone. "We're just having a conversation. Free speech, right? You can't do anything to me for asking questions." He was right, and he knew it. I was on school property, wearing a uniform, representing the district. Getting into it with some punk kid would give Principal Morrison exactly the excuse he was looking for to get rid of me. So I did what I'd been doing for 8 months. I swallowed my pride and walked away. But Brandon Lifestyle wasn't done with me. For the next hour, he and his friends made it their mission to turn me into content. They followed me around the parking lot, asking increasingly insulting questions and making comments just loud enough for the camera to pick up. "Look at him limping. I bet he got hurt on the job because he was too slow. Dude probably lives in a trailer somewhere, drinking beer and complaining about immigrants." This is what happens when you peak in high school and join the military because you can't do anything else. Every word was like a knife, but I kept my mouth shut and did my job. When the lunch bell rang, I positioned myself by the main entrance like always, watching the kids stream past on their way to the cafeteria. Brandon Lifestyle and his crew set up about 20 feet away, still filming, still making comments. "Check this out," Brandon said to his camera. "The tough guy military security guard won't even defend himself. What's he going to do if something actually dangerous happens? Probably hide in the bathroom." That's when I saw him. The man walking across the parking lot wasn't dressed like a parent or a teacher. He was wearing a black tactical vest over a gray hoodie, and he was carrying what looked like a rifle case. Everything about his movement screamed threat. The way he scanned the area, the purposeful stride, the way his free hand stayed near his waist. 24 years of training kicked in like muscle memory. Time slowed down the way it always did when everything went to hell. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, drowning out everything else. The man was maybe 40 yards away from the main entrance, and there were kids everywhere, coming back from recess, heading to lunch, playing on the small playground visible through the windows. I keyed my radio with hands that were suddenly rock steady. "Code red, code red, armed intruder approaching main entrance, locked down immediately." The man heard me and broke into a run. Pulling what I could now see was definitely a rifle from the case. Some kind of AR-15 variant, black polymer stock, 30-round magazine. He was heading straight for the doors where 3 dozen kids were still visible through the glass. Brandon Lifestyle and his friends hadn't even noticed what was happening. They were too busy laughing at their own jokes, too absorbed in their content creation to realize that the man they'd been mocking for the past hour was about to be the only thing standing between their entertainment and a massacre. I moved without thinking, muscle memory taking over where conscious thought would have been too slow. 20 yards to intercept, shooter moving at maybe 8 miles per hour, call it 15 seconds before he reached the door. The kids inside were starting to react to the lockdown announcement, but not fast enough, never fast enough. The shooter saw me coming and tried to bring his rifle up. Big mistake. In the teams, we had a drill called Close With and Destroy, and I'd done it about 10,000 times in training and another couple hundred times for real. Distance was my friend. At 20 yards, he might be able to hit me with that rifle, but he'd need time to aim. At 5 yards, I was inside his weapon's effective range, and I was a lot better at close-quarters combat than he was. I hit him like a freight train, driving my shoulder into his midsection and wrapping both arms around his waist. The rifle went flying, clattering across the asphalt as we both went down hard. He was bigger than me, maybe 6'2" and 220, but size doesn't mean much when you don't know what you're doing. He tried to throw a punch from his back, telegraphing it like an amateur. I caught his wrist, hyperextended his elbow until I heard the pop, then used the leverage to flip him onto his stomach. Knee in his back, arm twisted up behind him in a position that would dislocate his shoulder if he so much as twitched wrong. "You move, you die," I whispered in his ear, loud enough that only he could hear. It wasn't a threat, it was a promise, and something in my voice made him believe it because he went completely still. The whole thing had taken maybe 8 seconds from the time I first moved. By the time the local police arrived 6 minutes later, I had the shooter's weapons secured, his hands zip-tied with the restraints I kept on my belt, and a complete description of his vehicle ready to go. Professional habits die hard. But here's the thing I didn't realize until later. Brandon. Lifestyle had caught the whole thing on camera. See, when I first moved to intercept the shooter, his phone was still pointed at me. He'd been in the middle of making some joke about me being too old and slow to handle a real threat when that threat actually showed up. His first instinct wasn't to run or help, it was to keep filming. And his phone captured everything. The moment I spotted the danger, the radio call, the takedown, all of it, in crystal clear 4K video. The kid was smart enough to realize what he had. While I was giving my statement to the police and the FBI, who showed up about an hour later, along with half the brass from Naval Special Warfare Command, because apparently someone had looked up my service record, Brandon was already editing his footage. He posted the video that evening with the title, "Holy Shit, School Security Guard is Actually a Real-Life Action Hero." The caption read, "I thought I was making fun of some old security guard at my little sister's school. Turns out he's a Navy SEAL who just saved like 200 kids from a mass shooter. I'm an idiot, and I'm sorry." The video went viral faster than COVID. Within 12 hours, it had 20 million views. Within 24 hours, it was on every news network in the country. Within 48 hours, it was international news. That's when my life got really interesting. See, the video didn't just show the takedown. It showed everything. The hour of harassment, the insulting questions, my restraint in the face of provocation, and then the instant transformation when real danger appeared. People could see the exact moment when the broken-down old security guard became something else entirely. The first call I got was from my old commanding officer, Captain Rick Morrison, no relation to the principal. "Jesus Christ, Tom," he said when I picked up the phone. "I just watched you take down an active shooter on CNN. They're calling you a hero." "Just doing the job, sir," I replied, "because that's what you say." "The hell you were. That was 18 years of training and 6 deployments worth of experience saving those kids. You think some regular security guard would have spotted that threat? Would have known how to handle it?" I didn't have an answer for that. The second call was from my ex-wife, Sarah. We'd been divorced for 3 years, ever since my drinking and what she called my anger issues became too much for her to handle. She'd taken our daughter, Emma, and moved back to her parents' place in Oregon, and I'd been too proud and too messed up to fight it. "Tom, I saw the video," she said, and I could hear she was crying. "I saw what you did." "Yeah. Emma wants to talk to you. She's been asking about you, and after seeing this, I think I was wrong to keep her away. I thought you were dangerous, but you're not dangerous to the people you love, are you? You're dangerous to the people who threaten them." That conversation lasted 3 hours. It was the first real talk Sarah and I had had since the divorce papers were signed. The third call was from Principal Morrison, the one who'd hired me as a warm body. "Tom, I need you to know that I didn't realize—" He was struggling, trying to find words that wouldn't make him sound like the small-minded bureaucrat he was. "The school board wants to meet with you, and the superintendent, and I think the governor's office called." By the end of the week, my life had completely changed. The video had been viewed over 100 million times across all platforms. News crews were camped outside my apartment. My phone hadn't stopped ringing for days. But the real change came from the reaction of the people who mattered. The kids at Jefferson Elementary drew me pictures and wrote me letters. "Thank you for keeping us safe, Mr. Tom. You're my hero. Are you really a ninja?" The teachers who'd been whispering about me for months started looking at me with something that might have been respect. A few even apologized. The veteran community rallied around me in a way I hadn't expected. My inbox filled up with messages from guys I'd served with, guys I'd never met, guys from every branch and every era. "Proud to serve with you. Once a SEAL, always a SEAL. That's how we do it, brother." Brandon Lifestyle, whose real name turned out to be Brandon Chen and who was actually a pretty decent kid when he wasn't trying to go viral, became an unlikely advocate. He used his platform to raise money for veteran support organizations and started a series called Real Heroes that highlighted veterans doing important work in their communities. The school board offered me a full-time position as head of security for the entire district, with a salary that was about 4 times what I'd been making. The governor invited me to the state capitol for a ceremony. 3 different publishers wanted me to write a book. But the most important call came on a Friday evening, exactly 1 week after the shooting. "Dad?" The voice was small and uncertain, and I almost dropped the phone. "Emma? Baby, is that you?" "Mom showed me the video. She said you saved a lot of kids." "I did what I had to do, sweetheart." "Are you really a hero like everyone says?" I looked around my apartment, the same crappy studio I'd been living in for 8 months, the same fold-out couch and card table, the same stack of unpaid bills on the counter. But somehow it didn't look quite as pathetic as it had a week ago. "I don't know about that, Em. I couldn't let anything happen to those kids. They reminded me of you. I miss you, Dad." "I miss you too, baby. More than you know." "Mom says maybe I can come visit soon. Would you like that?" "More than anything in the world." The FBI investigation revealed that the shooter, a 28-year-old with a history of mental illness and a manifesto full of the usual grievances, had been planning the attack for months. He'd chosen Jefferson Elementary specifically because he thought the security would be minimal. The investigators estimated that without intervention, he could have killed dozens of children before law enforcement arrived. The tactical analysis of my response became a case study at Quantico and the Naval Special Warfare Center. Everything I'd done, the threat assessment, the approach, the takedown, the securing of the scene, was textbook perfect. But what impressed them most was the speed of my decision-making. From the moment I spotted the threat to the moment I engaged, exactly 3.5 seconds had elapsed. Most people would have hesitated, the FBI analyst told me during my debriefing. They would have second-guessed themselves, wondered if they were seeing things, tried to confirm the threat. You acted on instinct and training, and that's what saved lives. Brandon Lifestyle's original video spawned dozens of reaction videos and think pieces. Some focused on the heroism, some on the inadequacy of school security, some on the mental health crisis that creates school shooters in the first place. But the one that stuck with me was from a military analyst who broke down the tactical aspects of what I'd done. "This is what 24 years of elite military training looks like," he said. "This is what happens when someone who spent their career preparing for the worst-case scenario suddenly finds themselves in it. Look at his movement, his positioning, his situational awareness. This isn't luck or adrenaline. This is professional competence at the highest level." The irony wasn't lost on me. For 8 months, I'd been treated like damaged goods, a has-been soldier who couldn't hack it in the real world. The staff at Jefferson Elementary had seen me as a charity case, a broken veteran who needed their pity more than their respect. Principal Morrison had hired me because he needed warm bodies, not because he thought I could actually protect anyone. Brandon Lifestyle had seen me as content, a pathetic old man whose failure could be mined for laughs and internet points. He'd spent an hour documenting what he thought was my humiliation, never realizing that he was actually recording the calm before the storm. But when it mattered, when children's lives were on the line, all the labels fell away. I wasn't a damaged veteran, or a security guard, or a divorced dad struggling to pay rent. I was what I'd always been, a warrior. The shooter never had a chance, not because I was lucky or because I happened to be in the right place at the right time, but because he'd chosen to attack a school that was protected by someone who'd spent his adult life learning how to neutralize exactly this kind of threat. 6 months later, I was standing in the same parking lot where Brandon Lifestyle had first started filming me. But everything was different now. I was wearing a real security uniform, not the cheap polyester they'd given me before, but actual tactical gear provided by the district's new security budget. My radio was military grade, my equipment was professional, and my salary reflected the fact that I wasn't just a warm body anymore. The kids knew me now, really knew me. They'd high-five me in the hallways, ask me to eat lunch with them in the cafeteria, beg me to tell them stories about the Navy, the appropriate ones anyway. The teachers treated me like a colleague instead of a charity case. Principal Morrison had actually apologized, a real apology, not the political non-apology he'd tried to give me right after the shooting. "I misjudged you," he'd said. "I looked at your record and saw the medical retirement, the PTSD diagnosis, the divorce, and I thought you were just another broken veteran who needed a pity job. I didn't see the 24 years of service, the decorations, the leadership experience. I'm sorry." It was a good apology, and I'd accepted it. But I'd also made it clear that I wouldn't forget how he'd treated me when he thought I was powerless. The best part was Emma's first visit. She flew out with Sarah for a long weekend, and I got to show her around the school, introduce her to the kids I protected every day. She was 13 now, tall and smart and beautiful, and watching her laugh with the elementary students reminded me why I'd chosen this job in the first place. "You're really happy here, aren't you, Dad?" she said as we walked through the halls. "Yeah, I am. It's like you found your purpose again." She was right. For the first time since my medical retirement, I felt like I was where I belonged. Not because of the recognition or the better pay or the respect I'd finally earned, but because I was doing something that mattered. Every day, I was the thing that stood between innocent children and the monsters who might want to hurt them. It was a job I understood, a mission I believed in. Brandon Lifestyle, Brandon, had become something of a friend. He'd deleted all the original footage of him harassing me, but kept the video of the takedown up as a testament to what real heroism looked like. He'd used his platform to raise over $2 million for veteran support organizations and had started volunteering at the VA hospital in his spare time. "I learned something that day," he told me over coffee a few weeks ago. "I learned that you can't judge people by their worst moment or their lowest point. You were struggling, yeah, but that didn't make you weak. It just made you human." He was right about that, too. The 8 months I'd spent being treated like a failure hadn't been fun, but they'd taught me something important. Your value as a person isn't determined by other people's opinions. It's determined by what you do when it matters, when everything is on the line and there's no time for second guessing. The shooter, who'd been sentenced to life in prison without parole, had thought he was attacking a soft target. He'd done his research, chosen what he thought was a vulnerable school with minimal security. What he couldn't have known was that the minimal security included someone who'd made a career out of neutralizing threats exactly like him. That's the thing about warriors, real ones. We don't stop being warriors just because we take off the uniform. The training stays with us. The instincts stay with us. The willingness to put ourselves between good people and bad people stays with us. It doesn't matter if we're working as security guards or janitors or driving trucks. When evil shows up, we're still who we've always been. The kids at Jefferson Elementary go to school every day knowing they're protected. Their parents drop them off knowing there's someone watching who won't hesitate, won't second guess, won't run when things get scary. The staff works knowing that if the unthinkable happens, there's someone there who's trained for it, prepared for it, willing to handle it. And me? I get to go to work every day knowing that I'm exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what I was meant to do. The pay is good, the respect is real, and the mission is one I believe in with every fiber of my being. Brandon Lifestyle's video changed everything for me, but not in the way he'd intended. He'd set out to create content that would get laughs at the expense of someone he saw as a failure. Instead, he'd documented the moment when a protector revealed himself, when 24 years of training and service proved their worth, when the right person in the right place made all the difference in the world. Sometimes I watch that video, the whole thing, not just the takedown. I watch the kid making fun of me, questioning my value, treating me like a joke. I watch myself taking it, swallowing my pride, staying professional even when every instinct screamed at me to show him what I was capable of. And then I watch the moment when everything changed, when real danger appeared and the mask came off, when the broken-down old security guard became what he'd always been, a guardian. That's the thing people don't understand about veterans, especially those of us who've seen real combat. We don't need your pity or your charity jobs or your condescending sympathy. What we need is the chance to serve, to protect, to use the skills we've spent our lives developing for something that matters. I'm 52 years old now, and I've found my place in the world again. Every morning when I put on this uniform and walk through those doors, I know that I'm the thing that stands between innocence and evil. And if some monster ever decides to test that again, well, they'll find out exactly what they're dealing with. Just like Brandon Lifestyle did when he thought he was filming a broken man and ended up capturing a warrior instead.